All right, welcome. In today's video, we want to look at how to use QuickBooks to measure profitability of a trucking business. So we have got AB Trucking Company Private Limited, and we're going to use that as a case study and see how we do it. Now, we have been provided with financial information to use in the case study. So let's go to that financial information and see what we have before we start measuring that. So we have got this financial information that we have been provided for ABC Trucking Company for April 2024. So it's a financial summary, right? On this summary, we've got this first part, which has got the revenues per truck. So we have got truck AAG 2160. These are the invoices for this truck. This truck has got 3 invoices: invoice number 1, invoice number 2, invoice number 3. The same goes for truck BFD 3542. It also has got 3 invoices. So these are the revenues. We also have got truck CGH 1023. Again, the truck has got 3 invoices. So we're going to be capturing these invoices into QuickBooks, and then we're going to compare that against these expenses that we have. We also have got expenses per truck. Truck AAG 2160 with these expenses: fuel, maintenance, toll fees. The same for truck BFD 3542, and the same for truck CGH 1023. So this is the financial information or the financial summary that we're going to use to demonstrate how to measure profitability for each truck for a trucking business. So we're going to go back to QuickBooks. Now, when you come back to QuickBooks, the first thing that you have to check when you are on QuickBooks is to see if we have class lists for these trucks. So we do that by coming on lists, then we look for class lists on this. So we just run through and see if we have got anything titled class list. If you have got nothing there, what we have to do is we have to go to edit, then we have to come to preferences. Now, when we come to preferences, we just have to click on accounting, then we click on company preferences. When we click on company preferences, we have to put a tick here on use class tracking for transactions. This will allow us to measure revenues for each truck and also measure expenses for each truck or by truck. So once we have put a tick there, we just have to come here and click on OK. Now, after doing that, we have to come back on lists. Then we look again for class list. You will see that we now have got class list there. We just have to click on class. Then once we click on class, we're given this window. At the moment, because we haven't created any class, so there is nothing to show there. What we have to do is we can right click, then click on new. We are right clicking using our mouse, our computer mouse, and then we're clicking on new. Or we could just come here and click on this arrow pointing down, then we click on new. Whichever way we do it, it will take us to this window. So we've got this small window that we have up there with the class name. So in the class name, that's where we are putting in the registration numbers of our vehicles. So if you were to take the registration numbers of our vehicles, we have got 3 trucks, which means we also have got 3 classes. So we're just going to take that information and we are putting it there, starting with the truck AAG 2160. So this is a main class name. If it was a sub-off, we're going to tick there, but we're not putting a tick there. So basically, we're just putting that. Then we say, okay, this is how we create the classes or the list of the trucks. So we again go and click on new. Then we create the next truck, which is truck BFD 3542. So again, we're just bringing it here, pasting that. I'm just copying and pasting. You could have to type it in, whichever way you get the same results. We right click and we click the last track, which is track number CGH 1023. So we're again bringing that into QuickBooks. So this is the first thing that we have to do. Now we have got our class list. In other words, we've got these tracks as revenue centers and cost centers. We'll be able to link transactions to these tracks. Then eventually we'll be able to see profitability by each track. So after having done this, we can go back and let's see the financial information that we have. So basically we have got this financial information where we have these revenues. So we've got invoices for each track. So we're going to first of all process the revenues. In other words, we're going to do the invoices first. Then after that we then go on and do the expenses. So if we were to come back to QuickBooks, let's go back to QuickBooks and see how we actually do that. So right, for revenues, what we have to do is we have to come here and click on customers, because we're going to be invoicing our customers for the tracking services that we gave them. So we're coming here on customers, then we're coming to create invoices. When you click on create invoices, then okay, we can just click on do not display again, then click on no. Then we have to pick a customer. All right, we're just going probably to put a cash customer. You should have created your customers, but for my purposes, I'm just going to have cash customer as my customer. Then I'm just going to click that. Right, so I've selected my customer. This is the first thing that I have to do. Then here I have to select the class or the revenue center. So I'm starting with track AAG 2160. So I'm just putting in that. This is very, very important because this will allow us to measure the profitability by each track. So I'm putting in that class. Then if I were to go back, let me just go back to the financial information so that I pick for the first invoice and see the details. So here I've got invoice number, this invoice number, which I'm just going to copy. I'm copying that invoice number. So what I have here is I'm going to be copying the invoice number, the date, and the trip details, right? And then the amount, right? So I'm going to go back to QuickBooks. So I'll be coming here and copying this information. I'm just going to go back to QuickBooks and finish off the capturing. So I've got the invoice number. So I'm just going to put in the invoice number there. I'm pasting that invoice number for reference. Then here I could come and put the quantity. So on the quantity, I'm just going to put 1. Then here on item, I'm going just to quickly create, this is a service item, and I'm going to quickly create this item as a transport, because this is a transport service that we're giving. Transport services, right? So I will have that as then on description, I'm going to leave it blank because I'm going to be putting in the trip details. Then here I'm just going to put okay, we can put this, it's still okay. Then you say okay, so we have created our item. Now what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be picking the track details. So I'll pick the trip details and then input them in the description so that we know what was carried, what was done. So here on QuickBooks, we're just going to be pasting those details for this trip. Then again, I'm going to pick the rate. In this case, it was 2,100. So we're going just to pick that and say 2,100, right? So this is what we're going to be doing. We're just going to put do not display again, then we continue. So basically, this is what we're going to be doing invoice by invoice. We could put this on one invoice, but no, we're just going to do it invoice by invoice. So we'll quickly say save and new, ignore all, right? So we save that. Again, we go, we pick this customer, we pick the track, we're just doing it for AAG 2160. We come and do the next invoice, right? The next invoice is this. So we copy that quickly. I'm just going to paste that here again quickly. Then we pick our item 1, again our transport service, and we quickly put in the description. So basically, this is what we'll be doing throughout. the month, right? Then we come again, we put in the description there, right? We put in the rate. It was 1950, 100. This was done on 15 April. So again, we change the date. This was done on 15 April. Then the rate was 1950. Then we proceed as such. We save a new, right? Then you say ignore all, right? Then we go on, we go on and we do the next one. The next one was done on 25 April, and the invoice number was this invoice number. So we pick the invoice number, we put it there, right? Quickly, we're doing this quickly. Then we input the quantity. Our quantity remains 1, and our service item. Then we pick the track details. We have that as the track details. So basically the description is the track details, so that we know what was done, what was carried on that particular invoice. Then we have the amount or the rate, which was $22,050. So we're inputting that here. Then this invoice is done, right? So we save a new again. Okay, we should select a customer there, right? Then we save a new, right? So basically, okay, we have to cancel because we didn't put the class. So we have to put the class. We also always have to remember to put the class. Even here, we have to put the class because we want to take this by class. Then we say save and new, ignore all, right? Ignore all, right? So we have done for the first track. Then we go again and do this for the second track. So this is very important. We do this for the second track quickly. We copy that track, we copy the invoice number, the first invoice number for the track. So we could either copy or enter it. Then here we come, we pick the customer, but now the class has changed. It's now for this track. This is very important. Then we put in the invoice number reference, right? Then we have to look up the date. This was done on 7 April. So we are coming here, we're picking up the date on which this transaction was done. Then we put the quantity there. Our service is the same. We come, we pick the details, track details, very important because we have to know what was carried, what was done. Then we're putting in that track details. Then we come back, we pick the rate. So it was 1,980. So this is the invoice amount. Then we say save and new, ignore all, right? Ignore all, right? Then we again go and pick the next invoice, which was the invoice number that we copy that invoice number. We come back to QuickBooks, right? We pick our customer, right? We pick the class. It is this track. Then here on invoice number, we are pasting this. Then on the date, we just have to look at the financial information. It was 18. So we're picking 18 April, right? Then again, you just look at the rate. It was $2,020. So we are coming there. We're inputting quantity 1, transport service. We're just using one service item so that we just appreciate. Then we pick the transport details. It's very important to continuously pick the correct transport details. Then we're pasting that. Right, then we said the rate for this was $2,020. Then we are saying save and new, right? Then we ignore all, right? Then we go on and we then process the last invoice under this track. So quickly again, we copy the invoice number. We come here, we select the customer, we select the class. This is very important. Selection of the class, very important. Here we paste the invoice number. Then we just look up the invoice date. This one was 29 April, right? Then we come here, we quickly input the quantity. As I said, we're just using one service item, transport, but then on the description, remember, we are putting in the trip details so that we know what was done on this invoice. So we're inputting the details of the track. Then we look up the rate. In this case, it was 2,000 straight. So we're putting in 2,000 straight, right? Then we continue like that. Then we save and close. You'd see our class there. Then we say save and new. We're not saving and closing. Then we say keep number, ignore all, ignore all. Right. So we have done for the 2 tracks. We are left with 1. So we're coming back again. We're copying now this invoice number. This one was done on 3 April. Now we are on track CGH1023. So we're going to be coming here. We pick the customer. We're just using 1 customer, but now the class is what is changing. We're now doing for class for track track CAG1023. Then we're coming here. We are pasting the invoice. We look up the financial information. This was done on 3 April, and it was so we're putting in the quantity there, transport services. Then again we look up the financial information because we want to pick the trip details, right? Then we pick the trip details. We come back here, we paste the trip details. Then the rate was 1,900, right? Then we save and new. All right, ignore all. We go on. We have 3 invoices, so we're going to the next invoice, which is invoice number 2. We pick the invoice number. The details are that this was done on 14 April. So we come back here. We pick our customer. We're just using 1 customer. Class, remember, is now CGH1023. So we're picking that. Then we are pasting our invoice number. All right. Then the date on which this was done was 14 April. So we're picking that date, 14 April. We come here. We input the quantity. We're just using quantity 1 for demonstration. We pick the item. Then we have to put the correct details. That is trip details. So we're just copying that, and we are pasting that here. Then again, we have to pick the correct rate. In this one was charged $2,050. Right. So we have done invoice number 2. We are left with the invoice number 3. So invoice number 3 was done. We're picking the invoice number because we have to paste that. So this was done on 27 April. So we're coming back to QuickBooks. Then we are picking the customer. Our customer is just 1 customer. Our class, it's this vehicle CGH1023. We are inputting our invoice number there, picking the date 27 April. Then we're coming here. As I said, we're just using 1 item for quantity, transport services. Then we have to pick the correct trip details. So we go on, we come, we pick the correct trip details, right? Then this was done within Wange, so we're just picking that, right? Then we're putting it there. Then the rate was 1,800. So again, putting in the rate 1,800. Then we save and close. You'll see by so doing, we have captured the revenues. Right, so we are done. We have done the 3 invoices for each track. If we were to come back here and just see what we have done or what we have captured, we've captured the revenues, right, for track AAG2160, BFD 3542, and CGH1023. So we've captured the revenues. We are left with the expenses. If we were to go back to QuickBooks just to see the effect of what we have done, before we go on to capture the revenues, we could just come here on reports. What we have done is we have captured the revenues, we haven't captured the expenses. So what we are to do here is to see a report which shows the effect of the revenues or the invoices that we have captured. So we are coming to reports. Then we just come to company and financials. Then we say profit by class. So if we click there, you'd find we have this report. We have this report. Of course, it's saying pallet fees. I'm going to change that to tracking income. So you'd find so far what we have is only the income that has been incurred. So this is basically giving us income. Track AAG 2160 has brought in 6,100. Track BFD 3542 has brought in 4,000. Track CGH 1023 has brought in 2,050. So basically that's what we have at the moment. The total is 12,150. So we're going to go back and capture the expenses so that when you come here, we actually see in terms of profit what each track is brought in and what is the total profit. So we are just going to close that. Then for us to capture our expenses, we are assuming that these expenses, we are incurring them, we are paying cash. So we're going to come to banking, then we're going to write checks, right? Then of course we haven't created a cash book, so it will say, in order to write a check, you need to have a valid bank account. Would you like to create one now? So we're going to say yes, we want to create one. And let's say this money is coming from CBZ bank, right? Of course, this will be a USD account. So we're just putting up that as a bank account. We copy the account name and we paste it on description. Then we say save and close. This will allow us to write checks. So we are going to go back here. Let's go and see the expenses that we have. So we're sharing this screen again. No, the expenses that we have for each track they are listed here. For track AAG 2160, we've got fuel, we've got maintenance, we've got office. The same for the other 3 tracks. So we are going to capture these, assuming that they were just incurred on one day, right? So we come back to QuickBooks. So I'm just going to share quickly. I'm coming here and I'm sharing this. So I went to banking, then I said write checks. Then I was brought to this screen where I created CBZ Bank USD, right? So now for me to process these expenses, I have to select the correct date. But as I said, I'm just going to use one date. This is to demonstrate. Otherwise, I should have captured them date by date. So I'm just going to capture on this date. You have to see how I'm going to do it. So on the pay to the order of, I could create the vendors or the suppliers. The fuel supply, I could create the name. The toffee supply, I could create the name. The maintenance supply, I could create the name by clicking on add new, right? Then I could pick them one by one if that matters, if that provides me with relevant information, right? So I could create them, put the addresses and everything. Then here, that's where I put the description of the transaction. Now I've got 2 tabs down here. I've got the expenses tab, then I've got the items tab. Now for this, I have to use the expenses tab, right? Because these are expenses that we are incurring. So I come here, I click on account, then I look up for the account which I want to use. In this case, I'm looking for fuel. I want to see if I've got such an expense, right? I may not have such an expense. Let me see if I've got petrol, right? So if I don't have an expense which I want, on an expense account which I want to use, what I can do is I can create that expense account by clicking on add new. So when I click on add new, I'm taken to this window. Already I want to create an account, general ledger account, which is an expense account. So I select expense, then I click on continue. Then here I say fuel, right? Okay, so this is basically the expense which I want to create. Account name, fuel. I could just copy this, put it on description, paste, then save and close. Now I have the expense account. Now here I have to put in the amount. So our amount there was 860 for this track. So I'm just coming back there and I'm putting in the amount. I'm just copying and pasting, right? Then down here, I have to put in the description. So I have to explain. In this case, I could just write fuel, right? So the memo, it could also be here. It could also be written up here, right? So I'm just copying and pasting that. Then what is more important in capturing this is to pick the class. Don't forget that. So we're doing this for AAG 2160. This is very important so that we're able to track. Then the next expense which was incurred for this track was repair and maintenance. So I just want to see if I've got repair and maintenance. Yes, I've got it. So I'm just going to pick that account. Then I look up how much was incurred. It was $485.63. So I'm just bringing in that amount. I'm copying and pasting. You could have to type in. Then I put in the description here of what was done. So here, instead of probably writing repair and maintenance, I could probably write what was repaired. So I could say probably brake drums, right? So that I know, okay, a repair and maintenance was done, but what exactly was being done? Then I come here to class. So after doing that, I pick my class. This is very important. Don't forget to do this. Then, of course, there were 3 expense items. Then there were toll fees, right, which were incurred of 450. So I come here, I look up, do I have toll fees? I can type in and see if I've got toll fees. If I don't have, I then have to go up and create the toll fees. This is an expense, right? These are the toll fees paid at these in other toll gates when I'm going out. It could be even international toll gates. So we are paying this as an expense. So we're creating the expense account toll fees. So we click on continue. Then you want typing toll fees as the account name, right? So the same name is what we could also use as the account description. So we just say save and close. Then we put in the amount. The amount was 450. So here we then put in the description, toll fees, right? We could put further the details under that. Then again we have to pick the class, right, or the cost center. So after having done this, we can we save a new. So we've done for track AAG 2160. So we save a new, right? Then we go on and then we do for the next track, which is track BFD 3542, right? So quickly we're going to be capturing this. So again, as I said, I'm just going to use one date. Then I'm coming here, I'm picking fuel. I now have got these expense accounts, so I'm not creating again. I'm just picking them because I now have them. So expense account, I pick the amount. This one, it should fuel. It was 1,333. So I'm coming there, I'm pasting, right? Then I just write fuel. So on fuel, you would actually even write the liters that the truck took, and probably the cost per liter. You could probably include all those details. Make the memo or the detail as informative as possible. Then down here, you have to pick the track. The next one that we're working on is this one. So we're just picking up that. Then the next expense was repair and maintenance. So we're picking that. Then we're picking the amount. It was 620. So we're inputting that as the amount there. Then right. Then you are putting in, we're explaining what was done. So we could just say probably cylinder head. So the whole idea of putting the information is here is to know what was done. So we're saying cylinder head repairs. We assume that is what was done on that track. Then we pick the class, right? We go on, we do the last expense here, which was toll fees. Toll fees, generally we're applying it to all the tracks. So we've got toll fees there, right? And it was 380. So we've got toll fees of $380. So we're putting in $380. Then on the description, we're just writing toll fees, right? So basically we just have to write toll fees. Then again on class, we're picking that track, which is this track. Then after having done that, we again say save and new. So we've done 2 tracks. We're now going to do the last track, which is CGH 1023, right? Again, we just proceed using the same date, using the same account. Again, we're coming here, we're picking our first account as fuel, right? So we're picking in fuel as our first expense. Then we're putting the amount. So for fuel, this track incurred 450. So we are again writing the details. Then we go on, we pick the class. In this case now, the track we are picking is CGH 1023. Then we go on and we put in the next expense, which was repair and maintenance. So I'm just typing in this expense, it's already there. I look up the amount, it was $800, right? So we are putting in $800, okay? Then we say probably these were tires, right? So we just put that information so that we know what was done. Then we go on, we pick our truck. Then of course we lastly put on tow fees, right? Tow fees, as I said, we are applying it to all these trucks. Then we come here, it was for $500. So putting in the amount there and say $500, and then basically we're just putting in the description, tow fees, right? Then again we pick our truck, which is CGH 1023. So we have done for all trucks. Then we say this time around we're saying save and close. So we have done for all trucks. We captured the revenues through the invoicing process. We also captured the expenses through the banking right checks. Right now we want to see the effect of what we have done. So if we were to come here on reports, then we come to company and financials, then we come to profit by class and click there. You'd find we will have a report which shows us the profitability of our trucks. So this report is up to 18. Some of the date which I used for expenses was 27. So I have to come here and say, let it run from that period up to 30 April. Then I click on refresh. So you'd find when I do that now, I now have got a profit by class report for ABC Trucking Company. And up here, I've got the trucks, truck AAG 2160. Okay, let me change this pallet fees to I want to change it to tracking income. So I'll just come here, chart of accounts, right? Then I come to this account, right? Click on it. I want to edit it quickly, right? Then I want to call this tracking income, right? Then just say save and close, right? Then we're going to close that. Okay. Now, yes. So what we have here, we've got our track AAG 2160, and the tracking income for this period was 6,100 for this track, right? So total gross profit was 6,100. Then we had these expenses: fuel 853, repairs and maintenance 485, toll fees 450. Then this track brought a profit of 4,307.37 cents, right? So this is how we do it. The same goes for track BFD 3542. It brought in 6,000, right? Then it incurred these expenses: fuel 1,333, repair maintenance 620, toll fees 380. Then the profit for this track was this much, 3,667. We go to track CGH 1023. It brought in 5,750. Then it incurred these expenses: fuel 480, repair maintenance 800, toll fees 500. Then the profit was 3,970. So this is how you measure profitability of each track, doing the processing which I showed you. Then of course you have the totals here of the overall business, right? So basically this is how you do it. Thank you for watching. If you have got any questions, you can send them through. Then I'll be glad to do another tutorial which demonstrates how you process or how you manage a tracking business on QuickBooks accounting. Thank you.